Chapter 3. Acquaintances in War. The unkept roads caused the carriage to jump, bouncing violently and shake, creating great discomfort for Chrysian. Playing with his long nails, and then fidgeting with his dark red hair, the middle-aged lord finally allowed his impatience to take over and stuck his head out the window to yell at the driver.
"Push the horses harder. We need to be in Flumen as soon as possible."
As it sped up, the transport knocked the lord back into his plush seat. They continued to bounce over the rocky roads as they raced through the darkness of the forest, and soon raindrops pelted the vehicle's armored top. Each drop of water exploded, giving the sound of rapid gunfire. The driver pushed the horses hard, driving the lord away from his keep. Exhausted, the powerful animals panted for air. Pulling the reins tight in his calloused hands, the driver slowed the carriage at the gates of his lord's ancestral home, coming to a hard stop. The carriage jolted Chrysian from his seat. Using his magic, he braced his fall enough to avoid breaking any of his frail bones.
"Open the gates. Lord Chrysian demands entry."
The guard sitting upon the river city's great walls looked down at the driver.
"Piss off! No way the frail lord would make the journey here after the head of his clan exiled him to the forest keep."
Reaching a long arm out of the window, Chrysian raised his upper body into the guard's view. At the sight of the sharp crimson eyes staring up at them, they abruptly scrambled to open the gate. A loud barrage of words was fired from the top of the wall.
"Make way! Lord Chrysian is entering."
The reins snapped, and the carriage began moving once more. Crowds of pedestrians drew back as it proceeded into the clean and elegant streets of the capital and to the base of the steps that led up to the chambers of the clan's leadership. Pulling to a halt again and jumping down, the driver moved quickly to open the door. As he stepped out of the carriage, Chrysian's legs struggled to hold up his thin torso. Leaning forward, he used the momentum of the little body weight he had to push himself up the stairs, each step a momentous achievement. It took him some time, and the chill of the night pierced his coat and attacked his body. He was out of breath and weary by the time his weak arms reached for the closed doors. He was relieved when they opened for him. Standing before him was a strapping young soldier. Their eyes met as a hand was extended to help him enter the hallway.
"My lord, the other leaders are expecting you."
Chrysian forced himself to stand upright and square his shoulders.
"I didn't expect you to be here, Krampus."
The soldier nodded slightly as he walked with Chrysian to the main chambers.
"I am where your ancestor wants me to be."
"Theodrix is here?"
He nodded again.
"He is, and he's interested in the letter you received. If the contents are authentic, you have his support."
"The information in the letter is far too detailed to be a fake. The article was written in a matter to incite the greed of the lords."
"Why would someone set a trap by antagonizing their target?"
"I have seen worse tactics."
The two entered the hall and stopped. Krampus held the lord up as he was announced to the others in the chamber.
"Lord Chrysian Ferenz, a direct descendant of Theodrix and spy master of our illustrious clan."
Krampus helped Chrysian into an open chair, allowing the lord to rest his body.
"Let the meeting begin."
The boisterous debate began as each lord demanded compensation before sending an army. Chrysian rested his eyes, letting his ears pick up the details of the conversations around him. As Krampus started to move away, Chrysian handed the soldier the missive. Then Krampus disappeared into the darkness of the hall and entered a dim room where Theodrix sat drinking tea with his clan's advisor.
"Petition the Nosferatu. My clan will provide support."
Theodrix took a sip from the cup before him.
"I don't think that will be necessary."
Interrupting the exchange, Krampus walked over to his master and handed him the letter. Opening it up in short order, Theodrix passed his eyes across each word of every line cautiously. Finally, he spoke.
"This cardinal definitely did his research on the lords."
Smiling, he set the letter down.
"Playing to their greed is smart, and those in the chamber are just blind enough not to see the manipulation. Krampus, I want you to go with Chrysian and make sure the right military leader is in charge. I don't want a yes-man leading this effort. Now where is the child who discovered this letter?"
Krampus pointed to the door.
"Lord Chrysian was the one who received it."
Running his fingers through his white, red-tipped hair, Theodrix sighed before standing up.
"Take Chrysian with you and call up the reserves from the military academy. I placed a recruit there who I think will be most helpful in resolving this issue. Or he might make a bigger mess. At the least, It will be interesting to see how it plays out.
Frigid winds besieged the encampment, ferrying in the unrelenting aroma of the dead. Firenze's commanding officers flew through the camp, the sharpness of their words a driving force keeping the soldiers in their command focused. The fields surrounding Paul Vale had been converted into a staging area for an attempt to retake the city. In the days after the fall of the town, word spread swiftly and reached the ears of the Firenze aristocracy, who feared an attack on their own homes. The current lord of Firenze clan had issued orders mobilizing his army. On the far side of Paul Vale, outside the southern gates, a great army of local mercenaries and militias mixed with Firenze's formal troops. New recruits from the Firenze Military Academy were assigned to either a militia group or the primary military force. Tensions ran high as the time for battle drew near. Heavy fog blanketed the ground as pale, scaly humanoids scavenged the city's outskirts, looking for flesh to peel off the citizens' corpses. Light tried to push its way through the thick clouds, but its warmth never reached the heat-starved world beneath.
Soldier, you shouldn't stare at the greenish-brown ski for too long. The radiation will ruin your eyes. Even if they will regenerate, that still takes time and stamina.
Lieutenant Rama's 6'4" figure, square jaw, reddish-brown skin, and black hair made the man stand out.
You need to focus on the tasks before you. We are about to go into battle, and who knows what lies ahead of us. I need all my men ready to go at a moment's notice.
He checked his armor and equipment as he walked over to the just-minted infantry soldier. Intensity showed in the young leader's dark brown eyes as he crossed the camp. Of undistinguished birth, Rama relied on wit and intuition to survive in the Firenze military's aristocracy. Rayleigh, meanwhile, was still staring up at the sky as the moon and sun entered into a dance. Darkness crept across the atmosphere as the moon blocked out what little light was available. Torches flared up throughout the camp, and Rayleigh's mind drifted off, ignoring the words of his commanding officer. He felt pulled to look up, as if he were being drawn into an abyss. The comfortable darkness wrapped around the soldier. He was still cleaning his blade distractedly with a ragged cloth, and sudden pain pulled his attention away as he slipped and cut his hand. He stared at the wound. His hand started to heal, but he could not turn away. Fibers of skin stitched themselves together as he watched, confusing the man. A voice drew his attention.
You're a dumbass. You know that, rookie. Give me your hand.
A giant of a man in his early 30s approached, sending tremors through the ground with each step.
Goddamn. Sheep-herding pussy. Why the hell did they give me the fucking greenhorn?
Rama laughed at the officer's rant as he continued to walk away. Tyreen tugged a small bag of salt from a pouch on his belt and dumped its contents onto Rayleigh's hand.
Compress the salt against the wound.
The burning sensation caused Rayleigh's hand to lock up.
It will dry out the wound and start the healing.
Start the healing?
Rayleigh wondered. Before he could respond, Tyreen pulled out a bandage and doused it in gooseberry blood wine. His overloaded senses caused Rayleigh to focus on the sweet scent of the damp cloth.
Making me waste my precious wine on something like this.
The giant man muttered.
Come here. I'm going to pour the rest onto your fucking hand.
The burning sensation of the alcohol hitting the wound washed away the salt, making Rayleigh grunt and grit his teeth. Tyreen started wrapping the wound firmly, and the pulsing ache kept the muscles locked up. Gripping his injured hand, Rayleigh stared down at his wrapped palm, concentrating on the pain and controlling his thoughts.
You are clanless at the moment.
Tyreen grunted.
I was put in charge of showing you and the other fresh assholes the ropes.
Tyreen was a veteran of the clan wars, rumored to be one of the oldest serving warriors in the Firenze army.
Do you know who created this clan that you're about to die for meat?
He chose harsh words meant to torment the fresh recruit.
Lord Theodrix Firenze, lord of these western lands, is one of the oldest humans born from modification experiments. A third-generation experiment, his bloodline created the clan we serve. He fought in the big conflicts after the last great war that consumed the world, uniting the modified human weapons in this region into the largest, most experienced army in the world.
Tyreen spoke proudly as he remembered his time in his lord's service.
He must be charismatic to have gathered so many people.
Rayleigh's sarcastic tone caught Tyreen's attention, and he held out a hand to help the younger man to his feet. Rayleigh grabbed the big hand, and with a light pull rose to his feet. Tyreen shifted his weight and smashed his fist into Rayleigh's right eye. He followed it with a quick combination of a left hook to the ribs and a firm kick in the stomach, knocking the wind out of the new recruit. The young soldier fell to his knees.
That's for wasting good alcohol and being disrespectful.
Tyreen grabbed Rayleigh and forced him to his feet. Rayleigh, struggling to breathe, used an open palm to strike Tyreen's forearm. The pain caused the larger man to drop him, and Rayleigh hastily regained his balance and took a fighting stance to guard against further attacks. A bellowing laugh echoed through the camp.
So, you have some fight in you after all. Good. You might just survive this shitstorm.
Tyreen yelled over his mountain-like shoulders to his commanding officer.
Rama, the new shitstain, has a little fight in him after all.
A giant hand landed on Rayleigh's shoulder, filling him with confused awkwardness. Rayleigh stood 6 feet, 5 inches tall, and had long black hair and a toned, muscular frame. He took the approving shoulder pats with a blank stare and looked around the camp. The eyes of all his fellow soldiers were focused on the exchange. He gradually lowered his guard and let the tension dissipate. Tyreen ordered his soldiers to prepare as he walked away, laughing. Entering his tent, Rayleigh grabbed the small chair near his bunk and turned it to face the entrance flap, where he could take in the camp outside. Sitting by himself, he began cleaning and polishing the scavenged armor he'd picked up from a mangled corpse on the way to camp. The nervousness of war had taken over the base, and the constant chatter kept his attention as other soldiers entered makeshift bunkhouses and attended to various duties. Convoys came and went, dropping supplies throughout the evening. An overstressed supply officer silently sorted and stored the army's food rations, checking each box several times against his inventory list. The young officer was fresh out of the academy, doing his best to make a good impression. A carriage came flying wildly into the camp, just missing him as he dodged back.
What the hell?
Crimson eyes peered out of the carriage. Fear overtook the officer, and for a moment he stood frozen in place, as if his entire being had been erased. As the carriage moved on, he turned slowly back to his job, pretending that nothing happened, and the vehicle came to a stop in the central part of the camp. The doors were flung open, and a portly man leaped down.
Move your robust ass out of the way, Hamish.
A chiseled man in black climbed down next, pushing the fat man aside. Piercing red eyes showed through his veil. Without a word, he strode toward a tent. Lieutenant Rama reached his large domed tent and entered through the back. Glowing lanterns hung from the wooden supports, and the waterlogged earth hugged his boots snugly. He passed his eyes around the tent suspiciously, scanning for anything out of place. Then he moved to an organized mess on a table in the center, and began checking his maps thoroughly, using a finger to trace the lines and confirm the position of his target's camp.
Lysain,
He yelled.
where the hell are the papers I received yesterday?
A frail man with graying hair and dark circles under his eyes ran into the tent and began rummaging through the chests in a corner. Stopping abruptly, he laughed and raised a sheaf of documents.
I found them, my lord.
Rama turned around with an annoyed stare.
I am no lord, Lysain. You know that. If any actual lord were to hear you address me that way, we both would be whipped and hung from our thumbs for a week.
Lysain giggled with a weak smile, annoying Rama.
I have no intention of going through that type of humiliation. I would most likely also lose my rank and command.
Rama stared at the man with hard eyes.
So do us both a favor and shut up and find my papers.
The gaunt man scrambled to hand it over the papers he had gathered.
Now get out of my tent, Lysain, before your tongue earns us both a lashing.
Lysain hurried out, cursing the soldier under his breath. 4 men walked in as soon as he left, surprising the young commander.
You should probably break your servant's jaw, Rama.
The masked man said.
You heard that?
I didn't hear anything damning, but allowing your help to talk so disrespectfully, even under his breath, is not a good sign.
Men in blood-red and gold chest plates and half-helmets that showed their fangs stood at the tent's entrance.
You're probably right, Krampus.
The young officer fired back.
Well, it doesn't matter to me either way.
Krampus's red eyes let him see through the lurking shadows of the tent.
The commander is outside with Lord Crisian Ferenz. We are to secure the tent so they may enter.
He waved a hand, sending the other 3 soldiers about the task. The tension in the air increased as Rama returned to readying his battle plans. He could not help but focus on Krampus.
Are the Nosferatu invested in the outcome of this battle, Krampus?
He looked Rama dead in his eyes.
You know I can't answer that.
And you also know you shouldn't throw that name around. Focus on your duties and be less suspicious, my friend.
Rama sensed the guard's eyes on him. He turned to them, stood up straight, and released his energy. An immense pressure filled the tight space of the tent, and everyone around Rama was pulled down to their knees. As Rama's irritation grew, the force became stronger. Soon each man was dripping in sweat. Their hearts started racing in fear, and they knelt quietly, as if on a guillotine waiting to be executed. Rama closed his fist, cracking each knuckle, taking back command of his tent.
Calm down, my friend. They are only doing their jobs.
I have work to do before we launch this operation. I don't have time for politics, Krampus.
Krampus looked his old friend in the eye. His own red eyes seemed brighter in the candlelight.
Humor them, Rama, and lead your men well. My supporter invested quite a bit in your development. Do not disappoint him.
Rama's power dissipated as he refocused on the battle plans before him.
Thank you.
Krampus's sincere words reached Rama's ears, and he nodded. A full moon illuminated the night as the raining cloud cover faded. The light gleamed off scattered armor and bone as the soon-to-be battlefield soaked up the last of the blood for nutrients. The once golden fields were infested now with the rotting corpses of villagers, soldiers, and beasts. But the dead zone lay silent except for the carrion birds feasting and nesting in hollowed-out carcasses and other, nastier creatures that scoured the brown, sand-patched fields, splashing through puddles of blood, picking the flesh off bones, and devouring soft tissue organs. Rama had stepped out the back of his tent, looking to clear his head as he waited for the lords to finish their conversation and join him. The frigid air tempered his mind as he surveyed the area surrounding the camp. He caught a glimpse of shadows rippling across the field as servants and soldiers scurried about preparing for the morning's march. Cold dampness overtook Rama, and he gave out a deep sigh. The seasoned officer could not shake an ominous tightening in his stomach. It was as if a cube of ice was sliding down his back. His mind was racing, but he told himself gratefully,
The weather is not too bad tonight. No point in wandering off, it sounds like my guests are almost ready.
The young military man had waited hours for this meeting. The group of 3 men made their way into Rama's tent, in the middle of a row of similar ones where servants and helpers ran around in an organized manner performing tasks and chit-chatting. Voices giving orders could be heard throughout the camp. The clanking of metal echoed through the night as blacksmiths filled orders. We need more water. Slipping through the tent flaps, the cloaked men found themselves greeted by Rama, who showed his displeasure. Tall and gaunt, in a black cloak with red lining and trimming his bony fingers, he looked frail. This was not a man accustomed to the discomforts of war.
I don't want to be visible here,
one of the newcomers said.
Lord Crisian Ferenz, Royal Regent to the first family and 15th in the line of succession.
Pulling back his embroidered cloak, the Lord showed his withered face. He was young for Daemonkind, in his early or mid-40s, but his face showed rapid aging and scarring. The effects of using dark magic.
There is a lot to talk about and little time. And if I am seen, I will hold you personally responsible for the outcome.
Relax, cousin.
Commander Dino Ferenza said in a calm but firm voice that caused Crisian to glare at him. Lord Hamish Harrow could not hold back his piggish nature and began laying into the lieutenant for his lack of manners and for not preparing a welcome meal. Dino's short brown hair did little to hide the vein bulging from his forehead as he snipped back at the oversized man.
This is a battlefield. You would be lucky to find clean water, let alone food.
Rama, standing and ready to strike the merchant, finally relaxed his posture. He glanced at Krampus, and his friend's head movements pleaded with him to let the insult go. Hamish, feeling threatened, was letting his emotions run wild.
You, Lieutenant, will address me as my lord.
My lord? You are lord out of courtesy. Your schemes and wants are not his concern.
Dino smirked at the attitude of the anxious bureaucrat. Hamish, once a merchant, had schemed and killed his way through the political aristocracy, finally claiming a lordship in the Ferenza clan. The merchant lord now started to reply, but he bit his tongue, only muttering under his breath.
If it weren't for your bloodline, you would be licking my boots.
Dino's cold eyes stared through Hamish, driving the porkish man backward a step. Although not a lord by title, He was first cousin to the Firenze bloodline and well regarded by the head family for his vicious handling of a group of menacing kobolds in the area known as the Dogs of War. Rama reached down onto the table, collecting and organizing his plans, and found among them a report from headquarters on just that matter.
A territorial group of marauders that took on the features of wolves, their mutations were able to remake their bodies. Covered in fur-like armor created from their own hair, these wolfmen hunted in packs and attacked caravans and travelers. They were a scourge on the land for several years, earning their name before their bloodlust pushed the Firenze clan into action. Commander Dino led a group of hunters who tracked down several packs within Firenze territory, which earned him fame among the elite. Lieutenant Greendalian, Logistics and Information Department.
He continued to shuffle his papers around. Finally, Dino looked across the room.
Rama, show me your plan for this engagement. How will you break through their numbers?
He approached the war board, an old, splintered oak table with 3 carvings of bent women filling water goblets for its legs. As Rama cleared his throat and began to explain his strategy engagement, Hamish sat down in a corner, uninterested in military strategy. He allowed his mind to wander, and his attitude grew heavy as the words passing between the commanding officer and his lieutenant continued as if he were not there. Bored and angry, he started fidgeting and began carving into the sword rack using a tiny knife.
I plan to use the Ben of the Wolf as wedge breakers and then follow them up with pincer attacks of 3rd and 5th, sacrificing 1 band of mercenaries for victory.
There are a lot of eyes on this campaign. Do not screw it up.
Lord Crisian interrupted.
What are your plans for the Firenze?
Rama turned to the Lord, pausing before answering to make sure he answered the man in the proper tone.
I initially planned on removing him from the field. But I received this sealed letter from the head family.
Flipping a parchment open, he showed it to the others and then read aloud.
Rama, Mururid Lieutenant of the Firenze Army, you are under no circumstance to remove the Mururid here Walker Firenze from the front. There is a conspiracy to take his life and disrupt the line of succession. Keep him safe and surrounded by those who would protect him at all costs. I will be bringing evidence of this to the Lord the day after tomorrow. I have sent a courier to you and the Blood Knights with copies of evidence and a list of the co-conspirators. Signed, Lord Ferdinand Firenze.
Why the hell was this not sent through the command office?
Commander Dino stood up in displeasure, his muscular neck bulging as he stared down at his cousin and causing Lord Crisian to take a step back. Keenly rereading the dispatch, he looked up.
The courier hasn't arrived yet?
Not yet, sir.
When it does, I want to be notified of the contents immediately.
Dino slammed his fist down on the antique table.
Goddamned internal politics. I should kill them all.
A well-built man slightly taller than Rama, his straight, expressionless features had helped him come and go unnoticed. As a leader of wardens, he knew the surrounding woods well. He had spent much of his time in them, hunting down the monsters that plagued his clan. For the same reason, Dino was usually left out of the loop when it came to political strife.
Do not let anyone else know about this and keep an eye out for people and soldiers who are out of place.
Hamish, pretending not to listen, continued to whittle down the top of the weapon rack.
Let's go, Hamish. I have some things I want to discuss with you.
Hamish's small, cunning eyes turned up from his work.
That sounds expensive, I'll follow.
A sizable, crooked smile overtook the man. Small and round with stocky limbs, Hamish resembled more a carpenter or a warehouse worker more than a merchant lord.
I can't wait to bill you for my hours and expenses.
Amazing, I wonder what their deal is,
Rama said to himself with a bewildered look. His thoughts turned over in his head, but he shut them off.
I can't worry about Hamish right now. Though I have a sense he's after something Walker possesses.
He stepped away from the war table and called for his servant once more.
Lysine, get my armor ready. In the morning, we go to war.
A humid darkness blanketed the fires as the loud sounds of metal died out and the light dimmed. The howls and groans of ghouls wreaked havoc on the fresh infantry soldiers, causing many to lose sleep to nerves and nightmares. The loud crunching of bones echoed through the night. Rayleigh's tent sat in the dark. The noises of the night did nothing to disturb him. Lying down in partial armor, he was ready to jump up and fight if the moment came. The frigid winds slowly died out, letting the air warm slightly and leaving behind only the stench of rotting flesh. The scent of rain mixed into the odor, but the foulness was not something one could get used to.